So last week we talked about Will Hobbs on the AEW podcast, and he kind of told his story and such. But I gotta be 100% honest. He rubbed me just a little bit the wrong way. Um, he, it's hard to put a finger on it, right? He just seemed, I don't know. Maybe slightly in character, I guess, like a downplayed version of his heel character. And maybe that's exactly what it was, because he was on the Chris Jericho podcast this Friday, and his second podcast, and man, he just reached out to me in this podcast. Completely different interview. And it's weird because that was the AEW one, and it's unrestricted, so it's not meant to be a shoot, or it's not meant to be a work or anything. You don't need to do it in character. But I think maybe he was a little bit, or I don't know what the issue was. But with Chris, man, he just opened up, and I felt like I got to know a whole different side of Will Hobbs. I've heard his story a couple times already, but this was the first time where he just seems so genuine and so honest and humble as fuck. And it was just a really great interview. And this was the first time, even on TV, like I've seen Will, and I've kind of been like, yeah, I feel like maybe that was AEW was pushing him just a little bit too hard for me. Like, okay, he's okay, but after this interview, I think this man is destined for big time stardom in AEW. I don't think he's just a bit player. I don't think he's just a guy on Taz's team that's maybe getting a little bit of too big of a push. But I think I see what they see in him now, and it's not for me to judge. Fuck what I think. But I'm just, I guess, making the observation that up until this interview, I seen Will Hobbs a certain way, and after this interview, I see him a completely different way. So for that, I think it's very important. Just go out, check out this one. Great interview. Chris, they just had a great conversation, and Chris really dug in and got to know Will on a different level.
And I'm like, golly, like, I want to work here. And then, I go to the famous board and see who I'm supposed to work. And it says Will Hobbs versus Scorpio Sky. I go eat, come back and check the board. It says Will Hobbs versus Orange Cassidy. And I'm like, oh, shit.
Well, they switched it, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay.
Was that on Dark or was that on Dynamite?
It was on Dark.
Right.
And at this time, you and Orange had that feud going. Right. So I'm thinking in my head, I'm working the hottest baby right now who's in the feud with the hottest heel. Mm. I'm like, this is about to be on. Then I look over at the time, it says 30 seconds.
Really?
I'm like, okay. I'm like, this is cool. I'm like, I figured what was coming. And, I ran into Orange, and he's like, introduces himself to me, and he's like, hey, man, sorry about, this, and not getting a lot of time. I said, look, I was like, I'm here to do a job.
And that's what I'm talking about, the humbleness. He was all about it. That's what I'm here for. He's aware, he's self-aware, he understands his position in the company, he's humble, he appreciates it, he shows respect. Man, he's just, I think his upside is huge. I really do. I think much more highly of him. You can catch Chris Jericho every Wednesday and every Friday.